Hello, everyone. Thank you for downloading the showcase presentation. Today's session is pre-recorded. If you have any questions about this topic, you can reach out to us at program@nonprofitlearninglab.org. If you are interested in downloading more free resources, you can check out our free resources page on the Nonprofit Learning Lab website or reach out to us via email. And without further ado, I will now hand it over to you, Jasmine.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be giving this showcase. The topic is a values-driven framework for drafting your nonprofit's AI policy. And so I'm Jasmine Daly. I'm the principal consultant and founder of Daily Analytics. I'm based in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and I am a human-centered a consultant focused on bringing data science and AI to mission-driven organizations through development and implementation and fractional services. So I'll get started. I am a practitioner. I have been doing data science for over a decade. I currently use a lot of agentic coding assistance, so I'm very immersed in this world. And a very interesting aspect of what I do here when I'm in conversations with nonprofit leaders is that they feel like they are behind. They feel like they see all of the articles, all of peer organizations zooming ahead of them. But I really want to set the stage for this talk and this general showcase that you are not behind. The AI train has not left the station, but you do need to step on board. This technology is evolving at a rapid pace. Often there are new tools in the development released every week. And so this is the perfect time. You are not behind. You are right where you need to be. But it's important that you don't just linger at this coffee shop. You take your time thoughtfully, and you approach this work and this development of AI within your organization with a lot of thought. But it's really important to take that first step on board. This showcase is really trying to help bridge this gap. A lot of folks are using AI tools in the nonprofit space, upwards of 82%. And when you look at some of the statistics, only about, at the most, approximately 14% of organizations have formalized AI policy. And what sort of lives in the middle is a really large gap, and what I think is really an opportunity. And sort of what lives in there is data exposure, accidentally submitting sensitive information within these consumer grade tools, a reputational risk when it comes to data leaks and security and privacy, loss of trust from your constituents when they find out perhaps you didn't handle their data as sensitively as you should have, and very often staff friction. Folks in nonprofits shouldn't have to feel like their technology is working against them. They shouldn't have to feel in contention. They should feel like these AI tools are a part of their workflow that enhance and augments them, but does not replace them. And very often, a really great example, and I think we've all sort of seen this, is this accidental AI leaders that sort of pop up in organizations. And you definitely know that person if you're not that person already. An accidental AI leader is that person who is the go-to person, who's reading up on all the blogs, who's exploring and testing out tools with measured thought and background, but that person may not have organizational support, guidelines, all of the access to the tooling that would help make their work and their colleagues' work be as sufficient as it would with using AI tools. And what I think is one of the opportunities within this governance gap is the missed empowerment to level up the technical capacity of your staff. Folks are wanting to understand how to do their work better, how to refocus and reallocate their mental bandwidth to focus on their mission-driven work. And so I think a really important aspect when you're thinking about AI policy guidelines and policy is to understand that not all AI tools carry that same risk. Often see a real spectrum of tools that are on the lower end of risk versus the higher risk. So an example would be if you're composing an email. What goes in is a partial sentence, and what comes out is suggested completions, a really defined and narrow aspect of inputs and outputs. And we take that and we start expanding upon that risk, and we get to tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, And you have your prompt, which is just a set of instructions that would describe what you want the AI system to do and provide you. But along those prompts is whatever else that you are able to put in. You're able to put in documents, images, spreadsheets, and what comes out is new content. And having an understanding of the validity and the accuracy of that makes it really hard to understand how these AI tools can be responsibly and ethically implemented in your work. So, really important concept. Not all of these AI tools carry the same risk, and your framework should reflect that as you're thinking about how your staff works best and how to draft the guidelines to support them. So, um, I have developed an AI exercise, and this is before we get into the policy language and the building blocks, to really help establish your AI values when it comes to your nonprofit work. In the full workshop, we would spend time answering these questions, doing breakout sessions, group exercises, and discussion. And what I want to also have a little tip as well when it comes to these AI values is you could easily replace the word AI with any other technology. And so I want to help ground that these AI values exercises are applicable to a lot of other nonprofit technology solutions that you're trying to vet and include in your work. So the first question, what will we always do ourselves? Work requiring human judgment, relationship, sensitive consideration, that stays human. We find a lot of joy and meaning in that work, and it's important to state and emphasize that. The second question, this is really the augmentation zone of AI, and that is what can AI help us to do, but not replace. This is the aspect where we're not outsourcing our relationships, our gratitude, our client interactions, but we're leveraging AI to help us do some of the mundane work that can help free us up. The third question, what do we need to understand deeply? Even if we're using AI to help us, we must comprehend it. We must go back to our domain expertise, those gut feelings, all of the time that you've spent working in this field to understand what the input is and what the output is. And that is that deep connective feeling as you're trying to capture these AI values and what we're comfortable delegating. There are appropriate uses where light human review can be really minimal, where you feel comfortable with the input and output that you're providing the AI tool. And I think that you'll notice what I've said in each of these sort of questions that there are often humans in and on the loop throughout this entire process. I believe, and I believe after an exercise like this, you will come to realize that AI is a tool. It is helpful. It is appropriate sometimes. It is not appropriate other times. But humans and our work and the very critical mission driven work that we are involved in stays with us. And we use and leverage AI when appropriate. So these AI values from this exercise, the answers start to become your boundaries. And so what I mean by boundaries are things that always stay human. What will we always do ourselves? Client intake conversations, crisis communications, determining service eligibility. For me, in my work, in my consultancy, I personally find immense amount of joy in when designing a solution for a client. I start with pen and paper. Those are non-negotiables for me. I find it incredibly connective to start out and think very deeply about the human at the other end of what I'm building as a system. It's not a user, it's a human. And so for me in my work, how I relate my values to my boundaries is I say, hard stop. I'm taking a pen and paper as I begin this discovery session for a project. The next boundary is AI assisted. And so that's sort of related to the what can AI help with? And then what do I need to understand very deeply? So, for example, grant proposals, light data analysis and reporting, and program evaluation summaries to report out to key stakeholders and donors. And so for me, This looks like in my work, using AI to help with constructing data analysis scripts, but while having a hand on the wheel, is what I like to say. I personally inspect every single line of code that AI helps produce for my work. I find it often a need to course correct in this boundary and to apply my own domain and expertise that I've earned over the last decade. And so while AI assists, that is an area of work I need to understand deeply because I'm relying on my best judgment. So, AI enabled as a boundary. What are we comfortable delegating? Some examples like this are internal meeting summaries and transcriptions, administrative documentation, and template creation. These are appropriate delegation zones where light human review is sufficient. Remember, light but not absent of human review. And where you're just comfortable getting into that routine application of AI within your workflow. And so I use this in my work. I write a lot of emails, like sometimes we all do. Personally, I used to spend a lot of time overthinking every minutia, every grammar aspect, every aspect of how I communicate. And I feel comfortable delegating some routine communication responses for some of my emails back. And so that's where I personally use an AI enabled part of my workflow that I feel comfortable delegating, but still have a lot of access to verifying. So I think that some of the real tests of going from your AI values to your boundaries and then hopefully developing an AI policy is, what do you say when someone asks you, can we use AI for this, X, Y, and Z? What do you say as a staff member, as an executive director, as a board member? Is very telling to how your organization has thoughtfully understood about the people and the process and the systems that they need. So, getting on to a little bit of policy building blocks. So, I like to think of the first building block is what to protect. Your answers from your always human boundary can help tell and describe the data that can never go into AI tools. Very often, this is incredibly sensitive data with HIPAA violations if exposed. And this type of data always stays human, and your boundaries help protect that kind of category. Who decides? And so this piece of the policy is one of the most important aspects. Your boundaries often aren't self-enforcing. Someone has to make the call when a new use case comes up, a new tool, a new version of a new model for an AI tool, and staff discretion may make sense in one part of a tool's use case, and an executive director or a senior leader might make sense in approval for one set of tools. And so this boundary helps to sort of create a decision matrix about what to protect, who decides, and next up, inevitably, when things go wrong. This is really unfortunate kind of a category and a building block, but it must be captured in your policy building blocks. And really about how accountability sits with your organization and its people, not the tool. The algorithm did it is not an appropriate answer to when things might go wrong. Your policy should be clear how to repair the harm, how to document what when happened, and how to change the processes to prevent that from happening in the future. That's how trust gets maintained, not pretending that AI is perfect or as even a colleague in that sense, but by owning the outcomes and the accountability. So here's a little bit of an example of a AI tool that has multiple potential boundaries, and it just depends on the context. So meeting transcription, a personal fan of, which is just generally helpful. I really think it helps you connect and listen to the person speaking, often without trying to frantically write notes. But it really depends, right, on the context and how it falls within your framework. So, an all hands meeting with the majority of your staff, discussing information that is eventually going to be public released. It's probably okay to be leveraging a meeting transcription. If there was a sensitive staff meeting, perhaps even an HR conversation, that might not be the best use to involve in meeting transcription, to be summarizing and offloading that for an AI to provide context. And so, one tool, meeting transcription, multiple boundaries, and it really depends on the context. So, I really want to leave you with this thought. AI policy and training is a bit of a chicken and egg problem. You can't train people on the tools you haven't governed, but you also can't govern tools your team doesn't know how to use responsibly. You do need both. The way forward requires leaders to create space, to establish values, boundaries, and policy to give your team the permission to engage thoughtfully and in a brain space of experimentation. But this also requires staff to fill that space with intention and to demonstrate a willingness to grow and develop using these tools and develop new aspects of working when applicable. You create the guardrails together. Neither side can do it alone. And that's what makes this work. So, thank you very much for your time today. I hope this framework starts to help you move and in the right direction for making steps towards governing AI tool usage at your organization. In the full workshop, we'll spend time going through in further depth all the different areas, breakout exercises, discussion, doing a deep dive on the AI tool landscape, which is constantly in flux. And then what happens at comparing different AI tools and what happens with the inputs and the outputs and what you might expect. And looking at real policy examples from peer organizations who have gone through exercises like this to understand where their organization sits, the sensitive data and the populations that they serve, where their boundaries are, and concretely expressing their AI values as policy. So, very, very grateful for this opportunity. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Jasmine. This showcase presentation has come to an end. If you are interested in downloading more free resources, you can check out our free resources page on the Nonprofit Learning Lab website. Reach out to us directly via email at program@nonprofitlearninglab.org. Thank you so much for participating, and again, thank you, Jasmine, for educating our community.